Hello everyone, this is Faith at Faith&books. How are you doing? I thought I would do a quick review of Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen for Jane Austen July. I have read this several times before, but I hadn't reread it for a number of years. I read it partly in the book and partly on my Kindle. I finished it last night. And I started reading it, I think, at the beginning of July, and I just read it very, very leisurely. I just pick it up and read it when I got a chance. And then about halfway through, I started getting more intense about it. If you hear noise in the background, I gave my beagle a new bone, and he's really chewing. He's going to town, making a lot of noise. So I really enjoy Sense and Sensibility. I really, really love this story. And the book is so much better than the movie, even though I love Emma Thompson's version of Sense and Sensibility. I really enjoy that movie. But the book has so much more to it. And you forget about it. I forget about that there's more to it. Now, I recently saw I think it's the latest adaptation for the BBC. I just saw that like a month or two ago. I'm trying to remember now. It's kind of a blur. I didn't start from the beginning. My husband was watching it. He was recovering from surgery, and he started watching it, and I just came in while he was watching it and started watching it too, and we gradually watched the whole series. And I want to go back now. Maybe tonight I'll go back, and there is a lot of noise out there. Maybe it's other people besides the dog. Anyway, so I want to go back and watch that again, because I do think maybe it was a little bit closer to the book than the Emma Thompson. Maybe it emphasized more things, but that were sort of left out of the Emma Thompson one. Anyway, I really enjoyed the book a lot, and I forgot about how rich the minor characters are, like the character of Mrs. Jennings. And even there's a lot more Colonel Brandon in here. That you really feel like, I feel like you get to know Edward more here. And who else do you get to know? Well, they completely, in the movie anyway, they completely cut out Mrs. Middleton. And Lucy Steele's sister, is her name Nancy? Yeah. They cut them out. And is there anyone else I'm forgetting? It just seems a lot richer. Also in the movie anyway, because I can't remember this from the series, and I just saw the series, they cut out the whole scene with Willoughby. So this is a spoiler. When Willoughby comes by while Marianne is very, very ill, and that whole scene, they cut that out of the movie too. And that is a really good scene. So it's a rich book, and I really enjoyed reading it. And I love how you gradually get to love Mrs. Jennings. Like at first you're sort of seeing her as really annoying, and then as it moves on, you start to really appreciate her good heart, even though she's often clueless. She has such a good heart, and she's so warm. And even if she's, a little bit vulgar, she's so much better than these other people. So yeah, there's a lot of really heart in this book. I really enjoyed it. Now, I will say there's a couple of things I have problems with, and I've always had problems with. And one is the age difference between Marianne and Colonel Brandon. And this time I feel like I sort of got more of a handle on why it bothers me so much. It's not just that he's 36 and she's 17 or whatever, or she's 19 at the end, I guess. But it's because he never got over his first love, and that's why he loves her. Like if I was Marianne, I would be insulted that it's just a continuation. And it's ironic because in the beginning, Marianne, in her sort of immature view of things, says, "Oh, second attachments are no good." What does she say? That your first attachment, you're so passionate, and so a second attachment isn't worthy, it's not romantic to her to have a second attachment if the first one doesn't work out. Which is, Eleanor points out, is weird to say because her own father married a second time. So she's sort of, you can see how blind she is by her immature, very opinionated ideas. But in truth, at the end, Marianne does have a second attachment, but does Colonel Brandon? Because it's like he loves Marianne because it's sort of a continuation of his first passion, right? So that's a little bit creepy to me. And if I were Marianne and I wasn't loved for myself, but just loved because I reminded somebody of someone else, that to me is dysfunctional. It's a red flag for me. And I've never felt easy about that ending for Marianne. Colonel Brandon is presented as a very intelligent, kind, compassionate man, but he's got a hang up. And it's I don't know. I'm not happy with that resolution for Marianne. And I was going to say something else about the second attachment thing. Oh, yeah. And so here's the thing. Eleanor, I love Eleanor. I love her so much, but she's perfect. She's too perfect. Her judgment is always spot on. She's just, the very, she's a living image of prudence, of what it is to be prudential. And she's never rash. She never misses the mark. She's always right on top of things. She's wiser than her mother. She's wiser than Marianne. She's wiser than everybody around her. And yet, when Edward makes his foolish first attachment to Lucy Steele, he's the same age, I think. I think he's 19, the same age that Eleanor is when this book starts out. So he's allowed to make a misjudgment and get himself into trouble because he's young and inexperienced and he hasn't been guided well. But Eleanor is the same age, and where did her guidance come from? We don't hear very much about the father, but the father didn't seem... he's got this first son, John, who's, all he cares about is money, and he's kind of stupid. And then we've got the mother, who's much more like Marianne, very emotional and passionate and romantic. So where did Eleanor come from? And why is she so wise? Why is she so perfect? She's really perfect. She never does anything that's imperfect, that's wrong. So as much as I love her and would like to be Eleanor, it really puzzles me that, and Eleanor forgives Edward, for his foolishness. She understands. I don't know why she understands. She must just be naturally compassionate because she never makes a misstep. It just strikes me as she's too good. She's too good. So I think a lot of people think that Fanny Price, is a goody two-shoes, but Eleanor could be that way too. However, I love her, like the way Jane Austen creates her. It's, you're seeing things mostly through her eyes, and, you really come to love her and trust her. She's a trustworthy narrator. She's a really good person to hear the story through. So yeah, and I was inspired to want to reread this because I saw a video done by Miranda Mills, and I'll link to that because it was such a good discussion because they read this she's got something called the Comfort Book Club or the Cozy Book Club. I'm not sure what it's called, but they read this and she and her mother discussed it on a video, and they also have people call in who are reading it with them. They call in from different countries. And they leave a voicemail, and then she plays the voicemail. But it was the best critique of Sense and Sensibility that I have seen in a long time. They really, really understood the book so well. I really enjoyed that video, so I'm going to link to it below. So if you want to see what they have to say about Sense and Sensibility, you can. Anyway, I really enjoyed this for Jane Austen, July. I felt like when I finished it last night, I felt kind of bereft. I didn't have this nice, warm, I didn't have Eleanor as my friend anymore. Yeah. So anyway, a good book. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend reading it. So I hope you're doing well, and happy reading. Bye-bye.